According to an Associated Press analysis, the law limiting LGBTQ protections will cost the state more than $3.76 billion in lost business over a dozen years. This number is despite Republican assurances that North Carolina's bathroom bill is not hurting the economy. Financial hits ranging from scuttled plans for a PayPal facility that would have added an estimated $2.66 billion to the state's economy, to a canceled Ringo Starr concert that deprived a town's amphitheater of about $33,000 in revenue, have plagued North Carolina in the last year. The blows have been all-encompassing, affecting urban and rural areas. Usually a favored host, North Carolina could lose hundreds of millions more because the NCAA is avoiding the state. The NAACP also has initiated a national economic boycott. Thousands of residents in Queensland, Northern Australia, are under a mandatory evacuation as severe tropical cyclone Debbie approaches land, bringing heavy rains and intense winds with it. The storm is set to intensify from a Category 3 to Category 4 cyclone before it makes landfall near the town of Ayr on Tuesday morning local time. 3,500 residents had already been evacuated, according to Queensland Premier Anastasia Palaszczuk. Some residents are refusing to leave their homes, said Palaszczuk, with local police doing door-to-door sweeps Monday in a final attempt to get them to safety.
The earthquake which struck New Zealand in November 2016 has been labelled as one of the most complex earthquakes ever. The quake in Kaikoura, a coastal town on the South Island of New Zealand, was declared to be 7.8 magnitude. 2 people died as a result. Research into what happened in the Kaikoura event and why it was so catastrophic has been published in the journal Science March 23rd. The findings suggest the behaviour of this earthquake challenges what was previously thought about how earthquakes rupture. Lead researcher Dr. Ian Hambling told the BBC, quote, "You can call it bonkers, it's certainly a real puzzle." It is hoped the results will pave the way for how future risk assessments will be made and how scientists think about earthquake hazards in tectonic plate boundary zones. For Newsbeat Social, I'm Rachel Latham.
New Zealand's first transgender woman to compete at the Australian International Weightlifting Competition pulled off a dominating performance at this year's event, but some of her competitors are saying she had an unfair advantage. The New Zealand Herald says 39-year-old Laurel Hubbard set 4 unofficial national records at the event on March 19th. The second-place finisher lifted about 19 kilograms, or 41 pounds less than her. Hubbard was born as a male and was a competitive weightlifter before transitioning to a female in her mid-30s. One competitor told New Zealand's One News Now, quote, "We all deserve to be on an even playing field. It's difficult when you believe that you're not." Others have also publicly questioned if it's fair for Hubbard to compete as a woman. Hubbard passed all necessary qualifications to compete in the event as a female, which includes a testosterone test. For Newsbeat Social, I'm Neela Uni.
Coastal areas in northeast Australia were battered by high winds and heavy rainfall on Tuesday as a powerful cyclone hit the country. Cyclone Debbie was upgraded overnight to a Category 4 storm, just one rung below the most dangerous wind speed level. Wind gusts of over 220 kilometers per hour last resort in the Whitsunday Islands, a popular tourist destination off the coast of Queensland state. The eye of the storm was expected to reach the coast later Tuesday.
2 U.S. defense officials said that North Korea conducted another ballistics missile engine test Friday. The officials said the latest engine trial is the 3rd such test in recent weeks using similar technology. The initial assessment indicates that the engine technology could possibly be used in an eventual intercontinental ballistic missile. Possession of an intercontinental ballistic missile could allow North Korea to threaten the continental United States. ICBM technology is considered difficult to develop, with advanced rocket design being a necessary step. The U.S. is also not sure whether North Korea's military is capable of miniaturizing a nuclear warhead so that it could be mounted on a rocket such as an ICBM, though Pyongyang has claimed this capability and U.S. officials have said that they incorporate that ability in their planning assumptions.
32 animals died mysteriously in a Tennessee zoo. Zoo Knoxville announced Saturday, March 25th, that 33 reptiles had died, but updated the count to 32 in a statement Monday. Zoo staff entered a building Wednesday morning to find dozens of animals unresponsive. The surviving animals were removed from the building, given oxygen and checked for heartbeats with an ultrasound. Zoo officials don't yet know what caused the event, and necropsy results are pending, but they do know the deaths were confined to the one building. Among the animals lost were 3 critically endangered snake species, according to the zoo. The president and CEO of Zoo Knoxville said the zoo believes the deaths resulted from, quote, an environmental cause and not disease, according to the Associated Press. Local news station WBIR said the zoo suspended the building's use while the deaths are investigated. For Newsbeat Social, I'm Rachel Latham.
A magnitude 5.1 earthquake has led to widespread damage in southwest China's Yunnan province on Monday, affecting over 15,000 people. One person was injured and damage was reported in 8 townships in the Yangbi County. Homes collapsed and there are reports of cracks on walls. Schools, dams, and water facilities were also affected. The quake has led to an estimated loss of 200 million yuan, or $29 million in the area. Rescue teams made up of firemen, police officers, and disaster relief personnel have been dispatched. The first batch of tents, quilts, overcoats, food, and other relief goods is on its way to the area.
You are going to see almost 40 countries that are not in the General Assembly today. And that's 40 countries that are saying, in this day and time, we would love to have a ban on nuclear weapons. But in this day and time, we can't honestly say that we can protect our people by allowing the bad actors to have them, and those of us that are good trying to keep peace and safety not to have them.
The security conditions for a prohibition treaty are not met. In the current perilous context, considering in particular the proliferation of weapons of mass destruction and their means of delivery, our countries continue to rely on nuclear deterrence for security and stability. France will therefore not participate in the negotiation on a nuclear ban treaty along with other partners.
China appears to have largely completed major construction of military infrastructure on artificial islands it has built in the South China Sea and can now deploy combat planes and other military hardware there at any time. The Asia Maritime Transparency Initiative, or AMTI, part of Washington's Center for Strategic and International Studies, said the work on Fiery Cross, Subai, and Mischief Reefs in the Spratly Islands included naval, air, radar, and defensive facilities. China has denied U.S. charges that it is militarizing the South China Sea, although last week Premier Li Keqiang said defense equipment had been placed on islands in the disputed waterway to maintain freedom of navigation. China's 3 air bases in the Spratlys and another on Woodley Island in the Paracel chain further north would allow its military aircraft to operate over nearly the entire South China Sea, a key global trade route that Beijing claims most of. Several neighboring states have competing claims in the sea, which is widely seen as a potential regional flashpoint.
46 dogs have been saved from a South Korean farm where they were going to be slaughtered to be eaten by humans. The dogs arrived in New York on March 25th and were sent to emergency shelters the next day. They were found starving and living in hazardous conditions on a farm north of Seoul. Humane Society International's Director of Animal Protection and Crisis Response, Adam Periscandola, said he thought he'd seen it all until he saw the filthy facility where the dogs were being held. In a statement, he said, quote, "The ammonia burned the back of our throats. We could hear the dogs' desperate barks, but we couldn't see their faces properly, just their eyes peering out." The organization estimates there are more than 17,000 dog meat farms in South Korea, slaughtering more than 2.5 million dogs a year for human consumption. For Newsbeat Social, I'm Neela Uni.
UPI.com reports that a study at the University of Pennsylvania suggests a behavioral economics technique may increase the number of people getting flu vaccines. In the United States, only 44% of adults get an annual flu vaccination, despite recommendations and public awareness campaigns. Now, researchers at Penn's Perelman School of Medicine used a simple behavioral economics technique known as active choice and programmed electronic health records to alert healthcare providers when a patient is eligible to receive a flu vaccine, and then prompts them to choose accept or decline a flu vaccination order. Results showed a 6% increase in flu vaccinations in the 2012 to 2013 flu season when the program was introduced, compared to clinics that did not use the online alert system. This represents a 37% relative increase in flu vaccinations from the previous year.
Finally, what we've all been waiting for, Amazon shows off its Prime Air delivery drone. The company made its first public demo of the system in the U.S. last week. Take a look at this video uploaded on YouTube. It caught the attention of those who attended Amazon's Mars 2017 conference in Southern California. Although the order was arranged ahead of time, the fully autonomous delivery was a success, delivering a small box to a designated location on what looks like a yard. After gently dropping off the package, the drone took off again and disappeared into the sky. The Mars conference is an invite-only event in Palm Springs where the flight took place. Amazon calls it an exclusive venue for professionals and fans of machine learning, automation, robotics, and space exploration. There, Amazon CEO Jeff Bezos also piloted a 13-foot robot. And by the way, if you were wondering what was in the box, a couple bottles of sunscreen. For Newsbeat Social in New York, I'm Rumi Fukushima.
Police said 8 people were killed when an avalanche struck a Japanese ski resort on Monday. Located about 100 miles north of Tokyo, dozens of high school students and about 12 teachers had been taking part in a mountain climbing safety training exercise in the Nasu area. A local disaster management official told NBC News that 7 of the victims were male students, while the 8th was a male teacher. According to a spokesman for Tochigi Northeast Area Fire Department Operations Center, 2 other people suffered serious injuries. 36 people were being treated for non-life-threatening injuries.
Just 2 days before Prime Minister Theresa May triggers the formal exit from the EU, Bank of England said banks need to provide contingency plans to show they're ready for all possible outcomes. The policymakers worry that a sudden change could cause inadequate market liquidity and disrupt investment banking services. BOE Governor Mark Carney said earlier that he did not believe leaving the EU was the biggest threat to British financial stability, but major investment banks, including HSBC, UBS and Morgan Stanley, reported that they will each move about 1,000 staff out of London over the next 2 years.
Brazil's agriculture ministry said on Monday it ordered 3 more food processing facilities to suspend production amid an investigation into alleged corruption of inspectors and unsanitary conditions in the world's biggest meat producer. That brings to 6 the number of food processing plants that have been ordered temporarily closed by Brazilian authorities. Several major meat importers issued bans after Brazilian federal police on March 17th unveiled an investigation into alleged payments to government health officials by meat processing companies to forego inspections and ignore abuses, codenamed Operation Weak Flesh.
U.S. lawmakers and food safety advocates are pressuring the federal government to join other nations blocking shipments of raw beef from Brazil in the face of a scandal in that country's meatpacking sector. The United States has already started testing all beef from Brazil for pathogens. Farm organizations argue stronger action is needed to protect the food supply, with consumers less able to choose the meat they buy following the end of U.S. laws requiring that beef be labeled to show its origin. Their push to halt Brazilian imports could also boost domestic sales. A slew of major meat buyers suspended imports after Brazilian federal police on March 17th unveiled an investigation into alleged payments to government health officials by meat processing companies to forego inspections and cover up health violations. According to the Georgia Department of Agriculture, the state of Georgia has confirmed its first ever case of bird flu in commercial poultry. This means the outbreak of the disease is present in the United States' biggest chicken meat producing state. A flock of 18,000 chickens used for breeding have been slaughtered after testing positive for H7 bird flu. The Department of Agriculture says the birds were likely infected with a form of the virus that is not highly lethal because the flock did not show signs of illness. The discovery came after officials in Alabama, Kentucky, and Tennessee confirmed cases of bird flu in breeding operations this month.
The Dakota Access Pipeline developer Energy Transfer Partners said on Monday it has placed oil in the pipeline under a Missouri River reservoir in North Dakota. The company is preparing to put the pipeline into service. The announcement signifies a major development in the clash over the project. Many protests have occurred from two American Indian tribes who say it threatens their water supply and cultural sites. The pipeline will transport North Dakota oil 2,000 miles to a shipping point in Illinois.
On Monday, French President François Hollande said that the last mission in his final term will be to ensure that populism, nationalism, and extremism cannot win in France and throughout the world. Hollande, whose terms of office ends in mid-May, said at a press conference, "I still have work to do to prevent populism, nationalism, and extremism from prevailing, including in my own country." Hollande went on to say, "As far as I am concerned, I will continue to speak as much as I can and to ensure that what I have done as president can have consequences."
IKEA probably is best known for its assemble-it-yourself furniture, but now the retailer is setting its sight on smart homes. IKEA is set to start a line of connected lighting products designed to be simple, affordable, and accessible. These include light bulbs and also LED light panels that can come built into IKEA cabinetry or sold on their own, wall or ceiling mounted light fixtures. All of the products will communicate with each other using built-in Zigbee radios, the same used by Philips Hue. After syncing the lights up with an IKEA Zigbee hub that you plug into your router, you'll be able to control the lights from your phone or program them to turn on and off automatically at preset times.
Iran on Sunday sanctioned what is described as 15 American companies, alleging they support terrorism, repression, and Israel's occupation of land Palestinians want for a future state. This action is likely in retaliation for sanctions earlier announced by the U.S. A foreign ministry statement said the sanctions barred companies from any agreements with Iranian firms and that former and current directors would not be eligible for visas.
Reuters has reported that the Kremlin rejected calls on Monday by the United States and the European Union to release opposition protesters. The Kremlin detained protesters during what it said were illegal demonstrations on Sunday and accused organizers of paying teenagers to attend. Thousands of protesters took to the streets to demonstrate against corruption and to demand the resignation of Prime Minister Dmitry Medvedev. Police detained hundreds of these protesters across Russia on Sunday, including opposition leader Alexei Navalny. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov called the protests a provocation and said that authorities were concerned that opposition activists would encourage people to break the law again in the future.
A White House spokesperson confirmed on Monday that President Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, has volunteered to speak at the Senate Intelligence Committee as part of the investigation into Russian interference in the U.S. election. Last week, FBI Director James Comey revealed that he is investigating ties between top campaign aides and Russian officials during the election. According to a White House spokesman, Kushner was of interest in the investigation because he served as the official primary point of contact with foreign governments and officials throughout the campaign and transition.
If you could have a superpower, what would you choose? What about seeing colors that are normally invisible? Researchers at the University of Wisconsin-Madison recently made special glasses that give anyone the ability. Most people have 3 types of cone cells in their eyes that allow them to process blue, green, and red wavelengths. This trichromatic vision lets us see about 1 million different colors. But many animals, and even some humans, have a 4th type of cone cell. The condition, called tetrachromacy, allows them to see subtle in-between colors that give off different wavelengths of light. To most of us, these shades are basically invisible. But these new glasses grant the wearer the chance to see in partial tetrachromatic vision. Two lenses feature different colored filters that strip parts of blue wavelengths. Aside from just being awesome, the glasses may have a practical use in spotting counterfeit money or camouflage. For Newsbeat Social, I'm Carrie Caldwell.
It appears that nobody wants to do business with North Carolina as long as HB2 is in effect, and it's costing the state. According to an analysis by the Associated Press, North Carolina will lose $3.76 billion over the course of 12 years because of the bathroom bill. The NCAA moved 7 championship events out of the state, saying it was because of the cumulative impact HB2 had on local communities' ability to assure a safe, healthy, discrimination-free atmosphere for all those watching and participating in our events.
A pipeline spokesperson said North Dakota's oil spill was 3 times larger than originally estimated. Initial estimates said the Belfort pipeline leaked about 176,000 gallons in December last year. But Wendy Owen, a spokesperson for the pipeline, recently updated that figure to more than 529,000 gallons. It is now considered one of the largest spills in North Dakota's history. The spill contaminated a hillside and Ashcooly Creek, a tributary of the Little Missouri River. While the cause of the spill is still under investigation, the slumping hillside the pipeline runs over may have caused the initial leak. That section of the pipeline remains closed. Owen said cleanup for the spill continues and is about 80% complete. The Belfort spill happened around 150 miles away from the Standing Rock Sioux protest of the Dakota Access Pipeline. For Newsbeat Social, I'm Rachel Latham.
Reuters has reported that since President Donald Trump's election, monthly lectures on social justice at the 600-seat Gothic Chapel of New York's Union Theological Seminary have been filled to capacity with crowds 3 times what they usually draw. In January, the 181-year-old Upper Manhattan Graduate School turned away about 1,000 people from a lecture on mass incarceration. In the 9 years that Reverend Serene Jones has served as its president, she has never seen such crowds. Compared to the religious right, which has been credited with helping elect Republican presidents, the religious left is now coming together as a force in U.S. politics. J. Patrick Hornbeck II, chairman of the theology department at Fordham University, a Jesuit school in New York, said, "It has taken a crisis or perceived crisis like Trump's election to cause folks on the religious left to really own their religion in the public square."
The days of Israel bashing are over. Never do we not have the backs of our friends. We don't have a greater friend than Israel. And to see that happen was not only embarrassing, it was hurtful. What I can tell you is everyone at the United Nations is scared to talk to me about Resolution 2334. And I wanted them to know that, look, that happened, but it will never happen again. I'm not there to play. And what I wanted to make sure of was that the United States started leading again.
The World Meteorological Organization has released a new cloud atlas. The cloud atlas is used for observing and identifying clouds, ensuring global consistency. Chai-Ming Shun, director of the Hong Kong Observatory, said, quote, "The International Cloud Atlas Task Team had to choose from thousands of images from meteorologists, cloud lovers and photographers around the world. But it is the Esperitis cloud type which is receiving the most attention. Esperitis comes from the Latin word for roughness. The WMO describes these clouds as if viewing a roughened sea surface from below. How would you describe them? For the first time, the new atlas has been made available as a web portal. So go on, cloud enthusiasts. Take a look and let us know. For Newsbeat Social, I'm Rachel Latham.
8 Arkansas death row inmates who are scheduled to die over a 10-day period in April filed a lawsuit in federal court on Monday to halt their executions, saying the state's rush to the death chamber was reckless and unconstitutional. The lawsuit said the state is planning its first execution in a dozen years with a new prison systems head, new protocols, and a new set of lethal injection drugs, including midazolam, a sedative that has been dropped by states states after it was part of a few troubled executions. Arkansas's last execution was in 2005, and it has faced numerous legal challenges since then about its protocols and drug procurement secrecy.